There is a place in Africa where generations meet, where the young are entrusted to the old, and the wisdom of the ancestors is passed down like sacred fire. That place is the Initiation School, a powerful institution that stands at the heart of our African identity. This is not a mysterious practice. It is not shameful. It is not something to be hidden. It is our proud culture. It is a cornerstone of who we are as African people. And we will continue to practice it, not in defiance of the world, but in celebration of our roots, our values, and our vision of manhood and leadership. Long before colonizers arrived, long before schools with blackboards and uniforms, there existed our schools. Traditional schools. These were not mere ceremonies. They were deeply organized institutions where young people were taught what it means to be a member of their society. They were taught who they are. These were places where language, poetry, ethics, laws, and history were preserved, not in books, but in the hearts of people. A legitimate initiation school is not run by just anyone. It is not something a person can claim to conduct simply because they wear traditional clothing. No. A legitimate initiation is led by the king, or by those he appoints, his royal doctors, elders, and members of the royal family. It is the king who holds the authority, because the tradition belongs to the throne. The culture of a people flows from their leadership, and the preservation of that culture is a royal duty. When an initiation school is done correctly, under the guidance of the king and the royal house, everything is done with order, care, dignity, and honor. It is not a business. It is not a shortcut. It is a sacred responsibility. Every legitimate initiation has a regiment name, a symbolic name that marks the group, the year, the teachings, and the leadership of the group of initiates. These names are remembered for generations. Names like Madissa, Matuku, Masan, Mochadi, Madingwana. These are not just labels. They're chapters in the story of our people. These regiments are usually led by someone of royal blood, a prince, a chief's son, a young noble. That person leads not with arrogance, but with responsibility. They're trained to be an example, to guide their peers, and to report to the elders. In this way, leadership is not something you demand, it is something you demonstrate. Even kings, when they were young, were initiated, and when we remember them, we often remember them by the name of the regiment they led. That's how deeply connected our culture is to this practice. Initiation is not separate from power, it is a path to understanding it. Inside these schools, young initiates are taught ancient poetry, verses passed down through generations. They learn language, deep idioms and proverbs of their people, many of which are no longer heard in the cities. They learn laws, not written laws from foreign governments, but indigenous laws that governed how we lived, how we married, how we resolved disputes, and how we served our communities. These lessons are not taught with fear, they are taught with ceremony, song, repetition, and the authority of the elders. The elders do not speak just to be heard, they speak so the culture may live on. They are not entertainers, they are guardians of tradition. So it must be asked, why are we being told to stop? Today, there are voices, in government, in media, from international organizations, that question whether this tradition should continue. They look at it with suspicion, sometimes even hatred. They point to incidents caused by unregulated, illegal, or fake schools and use them as an excuse to discredit the entire institution. But let's be clear, the problem is not initiation. The problem is when tradition is abused, when it is taken from the royal house and turned into a private business. When people with no cultural authority open rogue schools for money, with no regard for the lives of the initiates. That is not culture, that is corruption of culture, and those responsible must be held accountable, not the tradition itself. Other cultures are allowed to flourish. When the British monarchy buries a queen or crowns a king, the world watches in admiration. They wear robes, chant oaths, hold symbolic items that have been passed down for centuries. No one tells them to modernize. No one calls them backward. When a pope dies, the Catholic Church goes through a detailed ritual. Black smoke if a new pope is not yet chosen, white smoke when he is. That ritual is respected, even revered. People cry, cheer, and kneel. It is understood to be sacred. The Chinese have dragon festivals, ancestral worship, and lunar ceremonies. The Indians celebrate Diwali, Holi, and wear traditional clothing for spiritual events. Muslims fast during Ramadan and perform the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca with deep reverence. These are not seen as strange. They're seen as beautiful, as proof of identity. So we ask again, why must the African abandon his own? Culture is not something you switch off when it becomes inconvenient. Culture is the soul of a people, and initiation school is one of the highest forms of African culture, where knowledge, discipline, identity, and spirituality meet. We do not fear progress. We simply do not want progress to erase us. There is room for the world to grow, but it must grow with respect for each culture's foundation. And our foundation is built in part on the sacred traditions practiced in initiation schools, led by the king, protected by the royal house, and honored by the community. To our young men, do not let the world convince you that your culture is unworthy. There is power in knowing who you are. When you step into that initiation school, under proper, traditional guidance, you are stepping into history. Into a brotherhood of memory. Into something far greater than yourself. To our elders and kings, we ask you to guard this culture fiercely. Only allow those with the right knowledge and the right heart to lead. Restore the discipline, the rhythm, the sacredness. And to the world, allow us to be. We do not seek to dominate. We do not wish to convert. We only ask for the same right you claim. The right to honor our ways, to educate our children through our traditions, and to carry forward the wisdom of our ancestors with pride. Let us continue to practice our initiation schools, not as resistance, but as remembrance. Not as rebellion, but as restoration. Because culture is not noise. It is voice, and in that voice, we hear who we are.